Hello, this is Ellie Parks, and you're listening to the We Are Not Invisible podcast. Today's subject is women over apologizing. I have worked in jobs that serve the public for most of my life. I noticed something during that time. Women are always apologizing for things, from not knowing how to do something that they have never learned to do, not smiling enough, and returning something that they just didn't like. Not long ago, a lovely older woman came up to the service desk to return cookies that she had purchased. The first thing out of her mouth was, "I am sorry that I am returning this. I just don't like the taste." I looked at her and said, "You do not have to apologize for not liking something. It's okay to return it. You spent your hard-earned money for something and it did not meet up to your expectation." It turned into a conversation about women apologizing all the time. She thanked me for reminding her that what she needs is important too. An apology, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is an admission of error or discourtesy, followed by an expression of regret. The following is what I have heard women apologize for: saying no to something they don't want to do, someone else's bad behavior, holding someone accountable for their actions, walking away from a bad date, having to go to the bathroom in a movie theater, having to ask a question at a meeting, being too curious, leaving a toxic job, being emotional, asking for directions to an item in a grocery store. Society in general teaches women what not to be. Don't be too loud. Don't be assertive. Don't be impolite. Don't say how you feel. Just absorb men's bad behavior in silence. Don't have too many sexual partners or you will look like a slut. Don't ask for what you need during intimacy. Dress conservatively so as not to arouse men. That last one gets me, because not only does it tell us what to do, but it makes men seem like they have no control whatsoever over their urges, which alleviates the blame of rape and assault and puts it squarely on women. Being assertive, intelligent, asking for your needs to be met, and not tolerating bad behavior is not wrong. Working at a job that men generally work at is not wrong. Going for that promotion and showing emotion is not wrong. When women are assertive, go for promotion, speak their minds, show anger or sadness, they are called the following names: bossy, abrasive, ballbuster, aggressive, strategic, sly, bad-tempered, argumentative, forward, intense, slut, tease, emotional, and let's not forget bitch. It has been a long road for women to even get basic wants and needs met from society, and to be treated as equal and productive members of society. Our country has been around since 1776, and the majority of women's rights did not occur for well over 100 years afterwards, and some as recent as 2013. July 13th, 1848, it started, with 4 women in upstate New York discussing and planning the first convention about women's rights. It was called a convention to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition and rights of women. Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, based on the Declaration of Independence. There were 12 resolutions. May 29th, 1851, Sojourner Truth delivers her Ain't I a Woman speech at the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio. December 1869, the Territory of Wyoming passes America's first women's suffrage law, granting women the right to vote and hold office. May 15th, 1869, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton found the National Women's Suffrage Association. October 1916, Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control clinic, eventually becoming Planned Parenthood. Early 1900s, women could finally own property. Before, women's rights were limited and married women could not own property, keep their wages, or enter into contracts. April 2nd, 1917, amendment of the Constitution is completed, giving women the right to vote. February 1945, Alaska Civil Rights Act is signed into law. December 1955, Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat to a white man and helps launch the civil rights movement. May 1960, FDA approves the first birth control pill for women. 1963, President John Kennedy signs the Equal Pay Act into law. July 1964, President Lyndon Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act into law. Title VII bans employment discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, or sex. June 1972, Title IX of the Education Amendment is signed into law, preventing discrimination on the basis of sex of an institution that receives federal funding. January 1973, Roe v. Wade, Supreme Court declares the Constitution protects a woman's right to abortion. July 1981, Sandra O'Connor is sworn in as the first female Supreme Court justice. June 1983, Sally Ride becomes the first woman in space. July 12, 1984, Geraldine Ferraro becomes the first woman nominee for vice president. March 1983, Janet Reno is the first female attorney general. September 13, 1994, First Violence Against Women Act is signed by President Clinton. January 24, 2013, U.S. military removes the ban on women serving in combat positions. July 26, 2016, Hillary Clinton becomes the first woman to run for President of the United States. January 20th, 2021, Kamala Harris becomes the first woman and first woman of color to become Vice President of the United States. I went to a Catholic school where we were taught to give to others, that putting our own needs above others was selfish and not Christian-like. The truth is the opposite. You cannot take care of others if you do not take care of your own needs, because you will be depleted emotionally and physically and carry resentments as you go. I have two short stories for you. One is about how one woman acquiesced her whole life to others. The other, a story about a blame is placed where it doesn't belong. I loved my mother. She was difficult and a rageful person, but as I grew older, I began to understand that rage more clearly. My mom spent most of her life taking care of a spouse who was caught up in addiction, trying to control it so that food would stay on the table and lights would not get turned off. She was taking care of 4 young children, 2 elderly parents, her elderly mother-in-law, helping my dad with his business and picking up supplies for his mother's neighborhood store. I can't imagine how overwhelmed she must have been. She lost her identity as a person and became what everyone else needed. She lived her life as others told her she needed to. Her only guilty pleasure was reading. She passed that pleasure down to me. I would go to bookmobiles with her every Monday because our small town did not have a library. I would get a stack of books, never just one. I used those books to escape the chaos in a chaotic and crazy household. She used her books to escape an addicted spouse and a life serving everyone but herself. She lived out her dreams of traveling to far-off places in those books. She stayed in that marriage because she had no way out, no income of her own, no identity of her own, and that is what was expected of her. We both used books to escape the life we are living. I really get angry when I hear people say that their grandmother loved their role as a stay-at-home mom and homemaker. Your grandmother did what was expected from her and gave up her own identity because that was expected of her. She didn't love it, I promise. She could not just pick up and go. She had no job skills. They didn't hire women except in low-paying retail-type jobs. She couldn't have her own bank account. She couldn't buy a house. And truthfully, had just earned the right to vote not many years before. Women stayed in horrible and abusive marriages because they didn't have a choice. Divorce was not an option for them. Grandmothers are the ones advising their daughters and granddaughters to wait to get married, to live their lives first before committing to raising a family. They don't want their loved ones to experience the same thing they did. When I was about 13, my parents were going somewhere for the day, and my brothers were not at home. I was home all by myself. I was going to a dinner. The school I attended was having a dinner for those who participated in the basketball program. All the girls in 8th grade were cheerleaders, so we were included. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard this exploding sound. The sound came from outside the living room. Our living room had a wall of doors with windows that opened up to the yard. I saw a huge fire was blazing right outside of the doors and reaching the eaves of the living room roof. We didn't have 911 back then, and there was no list of phone numbers on the wall near the phone. I ran to the neighbor's house and banged on the window. My best friend's dad, along with her uncle, came running over after calling the fire department and tried to contain the fire by using the hose. They didn't realize it was a gasoline fire, and it got worse. It exploded once more, and they both suffered severe burns and were taken to the hospital. The fire was caused by 2 gas-powered chainsaws that were covered by a tarp right next to the house. It was hot, and the sun was beating down on the tarps, and heat caused the gasoline to ignite and explode. The fire was not my fault, and I did the right thing by alerting someone of the fire. The neighbors had to sue my parents for lost wages. My mother shared all the details of the lawsuit with me and was upset I went to the neighbors at all. My friend's grandmother also said to me, "Oh, you're the reason my son's in the hospital." I internalized it, and it became mine. The person who put the gasoline saws next to the house was my dad. He put the tarps on. They did not have the list of phone numbers next to the phone. I did not cause it. It was not my fault, but because I did what any 13-year-old would probably do, and that is to get help with something I didn't know how to handle, it became my fault. I did all the right things, but it was not presented to me that way by the adults in my life. As a result of this incident, I would take on the blame for things that were not mine and were out of my control. I would apologize for doing something wrong that I was never taught how to do in the first place. It took a lot of therapy and a lot of recovery type meetings to finally break that cycle of apologizing. To only apologize for something that I did and not for something that I had no control over. I really push for people to get help, to go to therapy, to join groups so that they can grow and thrive. I encourage women to not apologize for things that they have not done wrong, and to take their power back by being everything they want to be, and not what others want them to be. Women have been told who they are and what they should be doing from the beginning of time. We have been taking the blame since Adam and Eve. Eve was deceived by the devil, and Adam made the choice to follow. We all know who carried the blame that humans were tossed out of Eden. The present time definitely feels as though the progress that women have made is being threatened. It is going to take women standing together and holding their place in society to keep us moving forward. It is going to take us to not fall into the trap of society pitting us against each other. Some of the worst derogatory remarks said to women are by other women. It is our responsibility to have a dialogue with other women when we see that happening. I have seen it in the workplace when women are ambitious and they are moving up, the derogatory names start flying around. I have seen it when men have affairs and the other woman is made out to be the pariah, called every derogatory name possible, when sometimes the woman has been deceived and doesn't know that the man was even married. If women are going to continue to move forward, women are going to have to be the ones who make it happen. Women cannot spend their time trying to convince men we deserve an equal place in society. Men are at the top and don't want to lose that position. We have men that want to help, but we have some that don't. We have to spend our time having open dialogue with other women, creating open windows where ideas flow freely, and not doors that can be locked and bolted. Women have to create a space of worthiness for other women. I don't shy away from controversy. I speak my mind. Some won't like what I say, but that's okay. People have the option of either listening to my podcast or finding another podcast to listen to. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.